And welcome to our Wesley Bible study. Today we're going to be going over Numbers chapters 2 and 3. We're going to blast through chapter 2 because it's just basically all about the order of march for the people as they break down by tribes. The Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, the Israelites shall camp in their respective regiments. You see how this is a military operation. It doesn't call them tribes, but the regiments have tribal names. Okay. Under ensigns by their ancestral houses, they shall camp facing the tent of meeting on every side. Those to camp on the east side toward the sunrise shall be of the regimental encampment of Judah by companies. And you can see there where Judah, for some reason, is placed in an ascendant position at this point. But when Israel was established, Judah was a preeminent district of Israel. The leader of the people of Judah shall be Nahshon, son of Amminadab, with a company as enrolled of 74,600. That's a lot of people.
What are you reading? I'm sorry.
I'm reading Numbers 2, chapter 2.
I was there, but it just didn't say. So thank
Yeah.
you, I'm sorry.
Those to camp next to him shall be of the tribe of Issachar. The leader of the Issacharites shall be Nethan. And it goes down like that
And
all the way.
These are all men, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's no women and children included.
There are, that's, all the counts are for men only. Thank you. Okay. The tent of meeting, this is down verse 17. The tent of meeting with the camp of the Levites shall set out in the center of the camps. They shall set out just as they camp, each in position by their regiment. So that's the Levites are going to get what we call an order of battle later on, but they are in charge of maintaining the camp of the tent of meeting and the tabernacle. And you'll see where all of those responsibilities are broken out. And then they go to the west side, north side. This is the enrollment of the Israelites by their ancestral houses. This is verse 32. By their ancestral houses, the total enrollment in the camps by their companies was 603,550. Just as the Lord had commanded Moses, the Levites were not enrolled among the other Israelites. Okay, there'll be a separate enrollment for the Levites later on. But
where do they get these numbers from? 6,000, 78.
I don't know, but I'll tell you what, if you've got that many people tenting in the desert, the logistics are horrible, horrible. I remember the section of Desert Storm where I was had 2 brigades, basically, of troops, and we were on the far western side, which was the back end. This wasn't the main thrust. This was just the back end, okay, of what we were doing in the big hook going up into Kuwait. But I remember being on a 2-lane road in the desert with 4 lanes of traffic bumper to bumper for over 5 miles just to supply those people. Okay, so when you start talking about well over 600,000 people in a desert, you just can't do that. Well, for one thing, if you had the flocks, and there's indication they got flocks and other indications that they're eating manna and quail. Okay, but if you had the flocks, you couldn't support the flocks for grazing in the territory where these people are.
So are you leading to the fact that they didn't have flocks with them? I mean, if they're leaving in the middle of the night, how are they gathering all their flocks and getting everybody? They don't show it in the picture.
No, they don't. They don't, but how do you feed over 600,000 people on a march? You know, it's just, it's incredible. It's beyond.
That's not women and children.
No, that's not women, well, they don't eat. But, you know, you have to understand that the standards for writing history back then are not the same standards that we have today. Today, we can actually get a count of people.
Well,
Okay.
it's interesting to me that somebody somewhere has not studied their number system.
Oh, yeah, they
To
have.
figure out what an accurate number would be.
Well, I haven't read the estimates. One of the problems that you run into, one of the problems you run into with the Bible is that if it's in the Bible, it must be true. And so for a lot of religions, it's not questioned. Okay? But I think it's a good idea to question. I really do. I think it's important for us to understand the nature of the way that they recorded history. Okay? And I also believe that God is not afraid of the truth. God is not afraid of the truth. So if it's misrepresented somewhere, I don't think that's a slam against God, and I don't think that God is responsible for these numbers. I think that the people who wrote it are responsible for the numbers.
But I still contend that for a novice that's sitting in this Sunday school class, that's
Yeah.
a problem.
Yeah, I believe so. That's one of the reasons you're sitting in this Sunday school
You
class.
know, because we say every Sunday, this is the word of God for the people of God.
It is.
You know, so,
Okay, but I guess the concept, and we covered this in a previous class, the concept is this the inspired word of God or is this the inspiring word of God? And I think it's the inspiring word of God.
But aren't some of the numbers more symbolic than actual counts?
They are symbolic. Every number, yes, every number in the Old Testament is symbolic. Okay, like creation in 7 days. Well, 7 means completion. You finish the job. That's kind of what 7 represents. And so people say, well, he created in 7 days. Man, I'm watching stuff now where they're going back, billions and billions and billions of years, just looking at the stars. And the 7-day calendar just doesn't work. Building up the Alps, building up the Rocky Mountains, building up even the Blue Ridge Mountains. You're talking, billions of years right there, just in putting that whole thing together. The division of the continents that happened over 300 million years ago. It's just, the reality of what we're facing is not consistent with the numerical system that's used in the Bible.
Yeah,
What
but our time is not the same as God's time.
that is the excuse that I hear all the time when people are trying to explain the discrepancy with the numbers. But the discrepancy with the numbers is not that you and I have a different time frame than God. The discrepancy with the numbers is that the numbers were not used the way numbers are today. The discrepancy is not with God, the discrepancy is with the people who wrote this.
well, who wrote it, do you know?
Yeah, the people who were in exile, explaining to the Persian government the origins and nature of their religion so that it could be legitimized and they could return back to their homeland. That's why it was written. Okay? But it doesn't have to be accurate, and nobody was there when it happened. Okay? None of the people who are writing about it lived during this period of time. So what you're doing is you're gathering up oral traditions, stories that were told. And one of the reasons why numbers get like this is that, if I say, well, there were 20 people in the tribe that camped in front of the tent of meeting, okay? Or I say there was 70,000 people who camped in front, which story is better? So So understand that oral traditions tend to go to the spectacular and the excess. You know? And they're doing, I guess, traditions that they can figure out to present something coherent. But it's human nature. Understand that a lot of the way the Bible is written has a lot more to do with human nature than it does with some with divine inspiration. Okay, this is a very practical matter. Why this was written? This was written so that the people could get out of Persia and go home. That's a very practical goal. Okay.
That's the first time I've heard that, so that's very interesting to me. So, in other words, the reason these books were written was to the Persian government, so they could make a case for themselves.
They could make a case for themselves to regain the loot that the Babylonians took, and that they could go back to their homeland and reestablish themselves. Okay, and going back to their homeland was a very big deal because that was, from their standpoint, the promised land. That was the land that God gave them. Okay, so getting back to that was important.
And this was because these people, it was their ancestors
Yes,
who went to the promised land, not them.
not them,
So some of them.
not by many
Some
generations.
of them probably were not as eager to go back as others.
True, not everybody went back.
Right.
Okay, and that's one of the reasons why you'll find Jewish communities all over the world. You know, there were Jewish communities that even went to China. I mean, there are Jewish communities all over the world because a lot of them did not return to the promised land. And Judaism, rather than being temple-based, after the Romans totally destroyed the temple, the whole concept of temple worship is not really very much a part of mainstream Jewish thought. Okay, they went to a synagogue system, and so it's different now. There are Orthodox that are wanting to reestablish the temple, and there are some very conservative Christians who think that if we can get the temple back, then Jesus will come again. That's a different agenda altogether. But Judaism, by and large, does not have to have a temple to be Judaism. But they needed to go back and to reestablish a temple during that period because they're trying to convince the Persian government to let them go.
Is the location of Israel now, is that where the promised land was?
Actually, the promised land went all the way from the Red Sea to southern Turkey.
I looked that up and it's much larger than
It's huge.
Yeah, it's a very large span of land.
Yeah, that was
compared to
promised.
what we're seeing right now.
Yes.
As Israel.
Yeah, what we're seeing right now is probably no bigger than New Jersey.
Right.
So, but it's still the promised land. So they still want to be there.
Right.
And they need to be there. They really do. They need to be there. There's no place else really that they can claim with any semblance of security. So, but these people wanted to go back. But even if they went back, even if they were slave of the Persian Empire, and the language that they spoke was Persian, the language that Jesus spoke was Persian. And there are places in Samaria and there are places in Iraq that still speak Aramaic, which is ancient Persian. So, I mean,
So when we hear Aramaic, we're hearing the same thing. It's
Yeah.
a different way of saying it.
yeah, it's not Hebrew though.
Right.
And that's what Jesus said.
Jesus spoke Aramaic. He could read Hebrew. Because he was a businessman, he also understood Greek, Koine Greek, gutter Greek. Okay, the Greek language of the street. He understood that because his dad worked in Gentile enclaves, and so he had to understand and do business with people who were Gentiles. So, but yeah, that's understand that that's the reason they want to go back, okay? And that's probably another reason why these numbers are so inflated, is that they're trying to convince the Persian government more and more that this is a legitimate populated nation, okay? And even if you take into account that it was a populated nation, the numbers that they're citing in here are really high, even for an established Israel. But they're trying to give the Persian government an understanding that this is a very well organized, legal, populated community.
Wouldn't Persia already recognize that?
No,
No?
no. Persia allowed people to worship in their own way. It was an extremely tolerant empire. Extremely tolerant. Not at all as intolerant as the Greeks. The Greeks are horrible. Okay, the Persians were much more libertine, and they wanted people to worship in their own way. But they wanted to understand, for national security reasons, what are you worshiping? And is that religion inherently adversarial to the Persian Empire? And so they are trying to show that they are not adversarial to the Persian Empire. Everything has an agenda. Everything. Okay? So that's why different books in the Old Testament don't necessarily show the same thing. Books in the New Testament don't necessarily show the same thing. It all depends on who you're writing to and why are you writing it. You know? So you take the stories that you've got and you move them into the genre that you're trying to use for a particular purpose.
Know your audience.
Hmm?
Know your audience.
You got to know your audience. And in this case, the audience is the king of Persia. Okay. And once you read it that way, it makes perfect sense. Even the exaggerations and everything else. What they're trying to show is that this is an established, orderly religion with a specific God, you know, and a specific way of worshiping that God. So if you're trying to say, is this a religion? It has every indication that it is a religion, a legitimate one. Loyal to Persia.
So Persia was accepting their numbers, or?
I don't know who they had for fact checkers. you know, I really don't. But if you can make a good case, you can make a good case. That's the point. Okay. We're going to move into a little bit on the on chapter 3, the sons of Aaron. Now understand that there is a division of labor when it comes to the highest echelons of Israelite government and religion. The sons of Aaron represent the hereditary priesthood. The sons of Levi represent the people who are the bureaucrats who support the worship system and the governmental system. So the Levites are in charge of maintaining all of the implements and facilities of worship and government. They are not part of the common defense. All the other tribes are part of the common defense, okay? Aaron is not a tribe. Aaron is Moses' brother, okay?
So in other words, God chose the Levites to take Aaron's place.
To take care of, no, chose the Levites to take care of business.
But they just happen to be the chosen ones.
They are the tribe.
Right, but was it random?
No, it wasn't random, because if you remember the story about when Moses came down from the mountain and God was going to execute judgment on the people. It was the tribe of Levite that exercised that judgment not only on other tribes, but also on their own families. So this is the incredibly loyal imperial guard, if you would. These are the ones who are the core true believers of what's going on, and they are the enforcers. So like they have places where the general population is not allowed to enter, okay? It's the Levites that kill you if you go there. So it's, you know, they're like the imperial guard in many respects. But they have more responsibilities than just law enforcement. Their respective responsibilities have to do with, you know, picking up the tabernacle and moving it. And then there's a breakdown in the tribe of Levite on which families in the tribe of Levite would have those specific responsibilities. And that's what chapter 3 is about. Okay. The lineage of Aaron and Moses at the time when the Lord spoke with Moses on Mount Sinai. These are the names of the sons of Aaron: Nadab, the firstborn, and Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. These are the names of the sons of Aaron, the anointed priests whom he ordained to minister as priests. Nadab and Abihu died before the Lord when they offered unholy fire before the Lord. That was a previous story. In the wilderness of Sinai, they had no children. Eleazar and Ithamar served as priests in the lifetime of their father Aaron. Okay, then the duties of the Levites. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Bring the tribe of Levi and set them before Aaron the priest, so that they may assist him. They shall perform duties for him and for the whole congregation in front of the tent of meeting, doing service at the tabernacle. They shall be in charge of all the furnishings of the tent of meeting and attend to the duties for the Israelites as they do service at the tabernacle. You shall give the Levite to Aaron and his descendants. They are unreservedly given to him from among the Israelites." So the priests are absolutely in charge of the Levites. Okay? "But you shall make register of Aaron and his descendants. It is they who shall attend to the priesthood, and any outsider who comes near shall be put to death." Okay? And the Levites are the enforcers. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "I hereby accept the Levites from among the Israelites as substitutes for all the firstborn that open the womb among the Israelites. The Levites shall be mine, for all the firstborn are mine. When I killed all the firstborn of the land of Egypt, I consecrated for my own all the firstborn in Israel, both human and animal. They shall be mine. I am the Lord." Okay, so now, what does this mean? It means that all of the Levites represent the substitute for the firstborn. So instead of killing all the firstborn, we're going to make the Levites the substitute. Not that they're going to get killed, but if you're going to if you're going to do a redemption for the firstborn, then you've got to pay the Levites. Okay. Then the Lord spoke to Moses in the wilderness of Sinai, saying, "Enroll the Levites by ancestral houses and by clans. You shall enroll every male from a month old and upward." So the other census was from 20 years old upward. Okay. The Levites is from birth upward.
Is this because they're not gonna fight?
Well, they're not going to fight with everybody else.
Yeah, but they're not ones chosen to go to
Correct.
war.
Yeah, and not only that, but because they are the ones substituting the firstborn, you do it young, okay? So Moses enrolled all according to the word of the Lord as he was commanded. The following are the sons of Levi, and he gives the names of the sons of Levi, and there are plenty of them, okay? To Gershon belonged the clan of the Libnites and the clan of the Shemiris. These were the clans of the Gershonites, their enrollment coming from the male from a month old. Okay. So we got a census of the Levites. I'm moving ahead here.
So every family in the Levite clan
Yeah,
had a specific role to do.
correct. Correct.
As far as the temple is concerned, and as far as carrying things from place to place and.
Yeah,
and
okay.
taking care
Like
of
for
it.
instance, the clans of the Gershonites were to camp behind the tabernacle on the west with the Eliasaph, son of Lael, as head of the ancestral house of the Gershonites. The responsibility of the Gershon in the tent of meeting was to be the tabernacle, the tent with its covering, the screen for the entrance of the tent of meeting, the hanging of the court, the screen for the entrance of the court that is around the tabernacle, and the altar and its cords, all the service pertaining to these. And see, they break it all down so that when it's time to pick stuff up and move it, you know which family is responsible to pick it up and move it. Okay? We're going to move on to verse 40. Okay? Then the Lord said to Moses, enroll all the firstborn males of the Israelites from a month old and upward and count their names, but you shall accept the Levites for me. I am the Lord, as substitutes for the firstborn among the Israelites, and the livestock of the Levites as substitute for all the firstborn among the livestock of the Israelites. Okay, so Moses enrolled all the firstborn. Da-da-da-da. Okay, the total enrollment, all the firstborn males from a month old and upward, counting the number of names, was 22,273. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, accept the Levites as a substitute for all the firstborn among the Israelites, and the livestock of the Levites as substitutes for their livestock, and the Levites shall be mine. I am the Lord. The price of redemption of the 273 of the firstborn of the Israelites, over and above the number of the Levites, you shall accept 5 shekels apiece, reckoning the shekel of the sanctuary, a shekel of 20 gerahs. And a gerah is a measure of weight. Okay? So a shekel is a silver coin. You got to do 5 of these to redeem your firstborn kid. Okay? And then there are other offerings for like the livestock.
So where does that money go?
It goes to the Levites for their support.
Because they don't have any land,
They don't have any land. They don't have any, well, they do have livestock.
so they're using somebody else's land. Or maybe they're using the land where they live.
They live in the, yeah, that's it. Okay, so you see that the system that they have set up for supporting the bureaucrats involves a head tax.
Do the Levites have a chip on their shoulders?
Yes, and a sword at their side. Okay, so yes, they do have a chip on their shoulders. And so do the priests. Okay, and understand that this is not a bureaucracy that you can change. This is a bureaucracy that is done entirely hereditarily.
Well, by God.
Yeah, well, by Moses. God told Moses, this is how you do it. And of course, because God told Moses, this is how you do it, you can tell the king of Persia, we've been doing this right from the get-go. You know? So understand that there is inherent in all sacrifices and redemption offerings and purification offerings and all of that, there is a portion of that that will go to the support of the bureaucracy of the faith and the bureaucracy of the government. And that's how they support it.
So you said a portion of it, but I thought it all went to them.
No, there's a portion that you have to burn on the altar, you know,
Okay.
depending on the sacrifice. If it's a monetary payment, then that'll just go into the treasury of the Levites and the priesthood. So that's, you know, that's the way they do it. But in every offering, there is a portion of the offering that's dedicated to the people who are conducting the sacrifice and setting up and taking down and moving around.
So
All
what do
that.
they use for money?
Shekels.
And so did they just make shekels? Because they're not, the government's not just saying, here, let me make some more and give it to you.
That's right. They did not have a mint.
That's right.
Okay?
So-
These people are on the march. They don't have a foundry and they don't have a mint. Where do they get their shekels from? They didn't have shekels until Israel was established.
So they're
they're telling it later on.
Yeah,
As if they did.
yeah, as if they had shekels in the wilderness. Okay, anyway, that's as far as we're going to get. But take a look, the thing that you want to understand about this, and why are we going into such detail and such depth on all this minutia, is because it's important for the king of Persia to understand that they are well-organized, systematic, orderly, moral, all of that. We are, in fact, a nationality with a religion, and we need to go home.
So are these people, while they're in Persia, doing anything to help support Persia?
Oh, yes.
So the king would not want them to leave.
It turns out, they got called off to Babylon, and they were basically put in charge of the irrigation systems for Babylonian agriculture. But as they established themselves in that territory, they were following the prophecies of Isaiah that they would work to the benefit of the country where they found themselves. And in their prosperity, you will find your own. And that's been kind of a mandate. And wherever Jews have been, they have contributed to the local economy and to culture and, everything else. They have been outstanding, better citizens, in fact, of most of the countries where they end up than the people who are nationally, that's their citizenship. Okay? They have benefited the community around them. And it's always been that way. They've always been very philanthropic, and they have skill sets that they bring into the community. They develop skill sets. They can't do very much about owning land, but they can set up shops.
So the dislike of the Jews
Mhm.
could be jealousy.
Yes, in many respects it is. That was entirely the case in Nazi Germany.
That they were jealous.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was entirely the case of Germany also during the First Crusade.
So we don't have the number
Right.
of how many people actually left Persia when they were allowed to leave.
Well, there's a number listed in the Bible, but it's as accurate as the rest of it.
But I would think, myself, would think that maybe more stayed than went,
Yes, more stayed than went.
because
They were established.
comfortable, they were established, they were in that
Yes.
community, they were there. It was frightening to leave.
It wasn't like leaving Egypt as slaves.
Right.
Okay? These were people in the space of what we understand to be 70 years, just a couple of generations, where they became very well established in the Babylonian and Persian Empire and became a real asset. And one of the reasons why the Persian king allowed them to go was that the place that they had left was ruined,
Right, it was in shambles.
okay? And this would be a way to improve the economy of Persia if they had an industrious and dedicated population in there that was bent on reestablishing themselves. So that's one of the reasons why the Persian king let them go, because they demonstrated that they were a worthwhile population within the Persian Empire.
I mean, look at the prosperity of Kinston alone,
Yeah,
the Jewish people,
yes,
and what they did for this community.
yes, that's right, a lot. And that's been the case everywhere. First, they've been allowed to establish themselves. And secondly, it's been the case where the population is not jealous of their wealth.
This population of Kinston, you think they're not jealous of the roadies and the stadiums and all of that?
Well,
This will be
nobody has stolen anything from them.
I don't think, I grew up with them.
And you don't think so?
No, we didn't think of them as anything different.
They put so many people to work.
Yeah,
Yeah, the shirt factory.
Yeah,
the
I understand that, but do you
stadiums
not
and
think that there are You know, you still hear it today.
Admire
You know, that, I don't mean that.
The
they-
Klan didn't like them.
Yeah, maybe that's.
The
yeah,
Klan
not
didn't like them, and the
necessarily.
Klan was jealous, and they still are. You know, and as far as I'm concerned, that same group of people are re-putting on their sheets when it comes to the Jews, as far as I'm concerned. But, I mean, these marches that I've seen remind me very much of the Klan marches that went down the street in Washington DC in the 30s. These are the same people, same mindset.
In other words, we have those in every generation.
We have them in every generation.
There's always those.
Yes.
But you know, didn't you always hear, don't try to bargain with a Jew, or, you know, there were all those derogatory remarks.
Yes, you're going to have that.
I could Jew them down, or, you know.
Yeah, well, those jokes persist even within the Jewish community. I've got a few.
But you know, they can do that within your
Yeah.
community.
You
Yeah.
know, that group that I ate with on Wednesday, we talked about this lately even. And we talked about how we didn't feel any different toward them.
No.
We're
No.
just-
Okay, I grew up in a community that was 1/3 Protestant, 1/3 Catholic, and 1/3 Jewish. And we had jokes back and forth between our communities all the time. And, you know, you're always talking about, you know, the three preachers in a boat or something like that, and a priest, you know, and, you know, yeah, always have that kind of stuff going on. And it was good natured and it was humorous. Okay. At the same time, I know that there were country clubs where Jews were not allowed in New York.
Right. Well, I
Okay.
grew up in a community where there was nothing but Methodist and Baptist.
Yeah.
Nothing but Methodist and Baptist.
And there were problems between them. So,
A lot of children.
Yeah.
I grew up in a country where I grew up was 90% Catholic. And I don't know what the government paid the Catholic Church, because I said this before.
yeah.
All the teachers were Catholic nuns. All the nurses in the hospital were Catholic nuns. All the caretakers in the nursing homes were Catholic nuns. Not anymore. At the monastery where I had the first couple of years in school, beside the Catholic Church, is now, I think they got 2 or 3 nuns left in there now. But it's changed. And
It
you
has.
know, somebody had to pay these people,
Yes.
so I don't know how much the German government paid the Roman Catholic Church
I don't know
for
either.
their services.
But when you see an entire nation with such virulent anti-Semitism, and you wonder where the origin of that is for such a broad population, look at who's teaching. Look at who's teaching them now in our universities. Okay? Where is it coming from? Take a look at the teachers, the professors, the priests, the pastors, and now even our government. And you see the same kind of influence going on.
My friend, I got a good
Okay, wait a minute, I got to sign off here. Okay, thanks for being with us, and we're going to pick it up somewhere in the middle of chapter 3 and move on. So, but this chapter 4 has really got some disturbing stuff. I just want you to know. So come on back and see us next week.
I got a friend from Germany. She's from Nuremberg, a few miles down the road from where I'm from.